Hey, what up? It's your boy. So I wanted to take time to wrap up the Haruda hyena video. You can consider this a part 2 or a finale. I waited a bit because I had a theory on what would happen next and I wanted to wait and see, so if you aren't caught up, basically Haru bought a suit for $5,000, posted it for $9,000 for sale, and then over the course of several weeks, guilt-tripped and more or less held the suit hostage, all while begging for money to get out of various undocumented emergencies, until the total basically racked up to around $16,000 before Haru quite literally asked if they could just keep the suit. Haru was developing, at this time, a small history of scamming people out of fursuit parts, and overall the main theme was manipulation through emergencies and excessive begging to people they really didn't even know. They had a GoFundMe for an accident and injuries that we never saw, and they posted emergency commissions, and several people gave them anywhere between $50 to $800 or more. In the end, Haru was completely unapologetic, claiming that these people gave donations of their own volition and proceeded to delete all social media and privated their Twitter. And that leads us to today, which is the official follow-up, and for me, where the story ends. Immediately following the video I posted, Haru magically found the will to ship the suit to Atlas. Well, technically, their friend, who's basically been working as PR for them, sent it for them, and begged Haru to step away from a while. So I'm glad that integrity isn't necessarily dead in everyone, but it's kind of a shame that they couldn't do it themselves. Now, there were claims that I did mention in my previous video where Haru knew that the suit wouldn't fit Atlas, and there might have even been some fat shaming going on. And in the end, the suit was actually too small, leading me to believe that there might have been some validity to those statements, but I digress, they're still hearsay. In any case, they have the suit. That is good news. We are happy that Atlas now has the suit and it is in the rightful owner's hands. That is good news. Regardless of the situation that happened, that is still really good, and you should go support Atlas for everything that they've been through and the kindness that they did show, even if it was to someone who didn't appreciate it. And now back to the rest of the story. So, Haru originally claimed that they would pay back the money on a payment plan, basically everything over what the suit had originally been listed as, which would be $7,000, but that's yet to be seen, and honestly, Atlas isn't expecting the money back at this point, especially considering everything was under friends and family, and they really have cut and run. So, following the first day that I dropped the video, I was told, aggressively I might add, that Haru is paying people back, and that I need to take that into account, and Haru is doing their best to be a better person, and I was actually, kind of happy. And I looked into it, and I was like, oh, who's gotten their money back? Like, that's cool. And it was like 2 people, receiving either like $10 or $30, and I was like, well, a single star for effort, I guess. And no one else had really gotten in contact, so the thing is, I paused to make my video because I knew there were only 3 paths that Haru had. Number 1, they could do the morally just thing and make a public statement addressing the situation. Assuming that the emergencies they begged for money for were true, they simply could have just shown images and given validity to them, right? Shoot down my whole last video. Prove these things happened. Somehow you didn't have enough money to ship, but somehow had enough money to go to FWA that weekend. Give us the receipts, right? Like, I would have even accepted like a Google image of a car crash and been like, this is my car. In that same sentiment though, they could have just said they're sorry for taking advantage of the fandom's goodwill. Say that they're working towards paying people back. Because the thing is, even if they didn't have the money to pay people back, which is probably the case, they could have done more, they could have at least gotten in contact with people and made amends in some way. People are nice like that, especially people willing to give you money for emergencies. And then there was option number 2. They ran. So no one ever really leaves the fandom. Every time someone makes a really melodramatic post saying, I'm leaving the fandom, it really doesn't mean much. So when their friend following the video said that Haru was giving the suit away and leaving the fandom, it confirmed that accountability was pretty much off the table. Now, I was told that Haru had given their suit away, which is... yeah, okay. You gave away a $16,000 yami fursuit before you even had the body for it. Yeah, alright. So look, here's the deal with option number 2. There's really 2 options within option number 2, right? So within this, the first one is that they simply plan to adopt a new name and pretend to be someone else entirely to avoid backlash. So when people rightfully criticize their actions, they can simply deflect it by saying, no, I'm not Haru, I'm no Scooby-Doo villain. Or they did give away or sell the suit. I don't think anyone new to the fandom would drop 16 grand on a suit like immediately, but crazier things have happened. So number 2 would be that they gave the suit to somebody else at the height of their controversy. A controversy completely within their control to address, and simply dumped their problems onto someone else, knowing full well that the person would be strawmanned for all the unintended criticism while they slipped away into the night. Like, somehow it would have been more fucked up if they had given the suit away. They dropped all their socials. They gave up, like, a TikTok. They literally just dropped everything. You know, they dropped everything because they didn't want to take accountability, and I think that that's kind of sad. I do want to point out, throughout this, my DMs were completely open. I wanted to see change happen, and if Haru had come to me, I would have 100% told them how to sort this out, right? I did the same thing with Raver Neon Light, and that didn't go over super well. Taking accountability isn't hard. They shipped the suit to Atlas. Honestly, all that was really left was making amends with the people that felt that they'd been used for money. They owed some art, they owed some fursuits, and some people probably would have accepted art instead of wanting their donation money back. People are understanding like that. One by one, you could have resolved every person that was on that Beware, and they probably would have retracted their statement. I would have 100% taken my video down, made a follow-up, not to dismiss their actions, but to show that they did as promised, and that's good. But instead, Haru opted for commenting about themselves in the third person and having a friend threaten copyright striking me, which would have made this a very different situation. I don't know, I almost feel bad for them. I know making a video because they were literally holding a suit hostage essentially doesn't exactly make me sound like the person they'd want to go to, but their first instinct was to block me when I gave them the chance to say what they needed to say before I even made my initial video. Regardless of how I come off, I do want people to grow and change, and I don't think Haru has done any of this. But at this point, it doesn't matter. The people that gave money to Haru probably have really learned to just be a bit more skeptical, and the person they owed a fursuit to is getting one from someone else. So overall, I do want this to have some kind of good attached to it. Just use this story to be a little bit smarter with your finances and realize that you aren't an asshole for doubting someone's claims or excuses. Mental health and emergencies get used constantly as scapegoats to avoid criticism and accountability, and having reasonable skepticism for someone having a concerning pattern of behavior or consistently repeating mistakes or excuses is not something that you need to feel bad about, because you can 100% be skeptical of claims, allegations, and excuses without coming across like an asshole or a victim shamer. And I do think that we should practice more mindfulness in this fandom, especially about some really serious claims that often pop up. As for Haru, honestly, they punished themselves enough, and I think that the punishment does fit the crime. They cut and ran instead of taking accountability, and if they choose to take accountability in the future, then cool, good for them. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm just letting it be. I just don't care anymore. It's kind of sad, it's almost pitiable, but honestly, please don't harass any of the accounts that may or may not be Haru. I just still would recommend not doing business when it comes to buying the previous suits mentioned. They really should take responsibility for their own finances outside of asking for donations, and I hope that they're able to do that one day. But overall, stay safe out there and keep it simple. Ciao.